Jack Miller tightened his scarf against the biting Alaskan wind. The temperature had dropped to -20 degrees, but he needed to collect more ice core samples. His research on climate change depended on the data from these ancient glaciers. Jack had been working in this remote outpost for 3 months now, with only his small research team for company. The morning had started like any other. Jack checked his equipment, packed his tools, and headed out to the drilling site. His boots crunched in the snow, leaving deep footprints behind him. The glacier loomed ahead, a massive wall of ice that had existed for thousands of years, but it was melting faster each year. Jack was here to document the changes and search for clues about Earth's climate history. Heather, his research assistant, followed behind, carrying additional equipment. The two had worked together for years, ever since graduate school. She was brilliant with data analysis, while Jack preferred field work. They made a good team. Set up the drill here, Jack said, pointing to a spot they had marked the day before. According to our scans, this area should give us ice dating back about 10,000 years. Heather nodded and began assembling the specialized drilling equipment. The sun reflected blindingly off the ice, making them both squint. Despite their protective goggles, Jack helped her position the drill and checked the collection tubes. "Ready when you are," she said, stepping back. Jack activated the drill. The machine hummed to life, boring down through the ancient ice. The first few feet went exactly as expected. Chunks of ice came up through the collection tube, clear as glass. But at 20 feet down, something strange happened. The drill made an unusual sound, a metallic clank rather than the usual grinding through ice. "That's weird," Jack said, turning down the power. "Did we hit rock?" Heather checked the radar readings. They had carefully mapped this section of glacier beforehand. "There shouldn't be any rock formations at this depth. According to our scans, there shouldn't be anything solid here except ice," she said, frowning at her tablet. Jack carefully withdrew the drill. A strange blue light emanated from the hole they had created. It wasn't bright, but in the clear ice it was definitely visible, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. "Do you see that?" Jack asked, pointing at the hole. Heather leaned forward. "The light shouldn't be visible like that," she said. "We need to widen this hole." They spent the next hour carefully melting the surrounding ice using heated probes designed for delicate extractions. As the hole widened, the blue glow became more pronounced. Jack lay flat on the ice, peering down. "There's something down there," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "It's not a rock." Heather joined him, looking down into the widened shaft. What they saw made no sense. A humanoid figure lay encased in the ancient ice. The blue glow came from markings on what appeared to be a metallic suit. "Is that a person?" Jack whispered. His heart raced. How could someone be frozen so deep in a glacier that had formed thousands of years ago? "I don't know," Heather replied. "But we need to get whatever it is out." They called the rest of their small team on the radio. Sam and Gwen arrived within the hour, bringing additional equipment. Jack explained what they had found. Sam, an experienced medical researcher, looked skeptical. "It's probably just some unusual mineral formation," he said. But when he peered down the hole, his expression changed. "Oh my God." They worked through the day and into the night, carefully melting the ice around the figure. None of them wanted to risk damaging whatever or whoever lay frozen below. As the ice melted away, the figure became clearer. It was definitely humanoid female in appearance, with a slender build. The metallic suit she wore seemed to shimmer and pulse with faint blue light. Her skin, visible at her face and hands, had a pale blue tint. By midnight, they had melted enough ice to begin the extraction process. They lowered a thermal blanket into the hole, then carefully lifted the frozen figure. Jack felt his breath catch as they brought her to the surface. She looked almost human, but not quite. Her features were delicate. With high cheekbones, her hair was white as the snow around them. "Is she dead?" Gwen asked the question they were all thinking. Jack carefully placed 2 gloved fingers against the woman's neck, expecting the cold stillness of death. What he felt instead made him jerk his hand back in surprise. "There's a pulse," he said in disbelief. "Slow, very slow, but definite, impossible." Sam said, "It's got to be your own pulse you're feeling. No one could survive being frozen in a glacier." Yet the evidence was before them. The woman's chest now rose and fell with shallow but rhythmic breaths. "We need to get her back to the research station," Jack said, taking charge. "Whatever or whoever she is, she needs medical attention." They bundled the mysterious woman onto their transport, sled and made their way back to the research station. Sam immediately converted their small medical bay into an emergency room. They placed the woman under heat lamps to continue the thawing process while monitoring her vital signs. Her pulse is extremely slow, Sam reported as he attached monitoring equipment. Her body temperature is rising but still far below what should be possible for a living human. It's almost as if she was in some kind of suspended animation. For 3 days they took turns watching over the mysterious woman. Her vital signs gradually strengthened. The strange markings on her skin occasionally pulsed with that same blue light. Jack found himself volunteering for most of the night shifts, drawn to the mystery of her existence. On the morning of the 4th day, Jack was alone in the medical bay. The others were having breakfast. He was updating the monitoring logs when he heard a soft sound. He turned to find the woman's eyes open. They were unlike any eyes he had ever seen, with vertical pupils like a cat's and irises that shifted between purple and gold. Jack froze, unable to speak. The woman looked directly at him, then around the room, taking in her surroundings with evident confusion. "Where am I?" she asked. Her voice had an odd melodic quality with an accent Jack couldn't place. "You're in Alaska, Earth." Jack finally managed to reply. "You're safe. We found you frozen in a glacier." The woman sat up suddenly, her movements fluid despite having been frozen solid. Just days before Earth, she repeated the word as if testing it. "You call this planet Earth?" "Yes." Jack felt a strange chill run through him. "What do you call it?" "We call it Blue Prison," she said. Jack stared at her, hardly able to process what she was implying. "Who are you?" he asked. "My name in your language would be closest to Lyra," she replied, "though it is only an approximation." Jack swallowed hard. "Are you saying you're not from Earth?" Lyra looked at him, her strange eyes unblinking. "I am from a world you cannot see from here. My people are called the Astrani. We have been watching your planet for a very long time." Jack wanted to believe she was confused, suffering from the trauma of whatever had happened to her. But the evidence was before him. Her eyes, her skin, the strange technology of her suit. None of it was human. "How did you end up in the ice?" he asked. Lyra's expression changed to something like sadness. "I was sent here as a scout over 200 of your Earth years ago, but there was a malfunction. In my ship I crashed during a storm. My stasis chamber activated to preserve me until rescue could come. But it seems my people never found me." Jack struggled to process this information. An alien crashed on Earth 2 centuries ago and had been preserved. In the ice all this time it seemed impossible. And yet she was sitting here before him, very much alive. "I need to tell the others," Jack said, moving toward the door. Lyra moved with startling speed, blocking his path. "Please," she said. "Wait. I don't know if I'm ready to meet more humans. Your kind weren't ready for contact when I came here. I need to understand how much has changed." Jack hesitated, torn between his scientific duty to document this incredible discovery and something more instinctual, a desire to protect this strange woman from a potential media frenzy, or worse, government interference. Before Jack could decide, the door opened and Heather walked in carrying a tray of food. She stopped abruptly, the tray slipping from her hands and clattering to the floor. "She's awake," Heather gasped, staring at Lyra. Jack looked between the two women, knowing that everything was about to change. He had found an alien woman frozen in the glaciers, and he had no idea what would happen next. Heather backed away, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. The tray of food lay forgotten on the floor. The alien woman, Lyra, remained perfectly still, watching Heather's reaction with those strange cat-like eyes. "She says her name is Lyra," Jack explained, quickly trying to diffuse the tension. "She was in some kind of stasis. Heather repeated, her scientific mind struggling to accept what she was seeing. "You mean like hibernation?" "Not exactly," Lyra said, her melodic voice making Heather flinch. "I was preserved by technology my people use for long space journeys." Jack could see the conflict in Heather's expression. The scientist in her wanted to question everything, while another part clearly wanted to run from the room. "She's not human," Jack said, gently. "She crashed here 200 years ago. Her ship is probably still in the glacier." Heather shook her head. This is impossible, she whispered. People will think we're crazy. We need to call someone. The authorities? No, Lyra said sharply. The markings on her skin pulsed brighter for a moment. I am not ready to meet your authorities. I need to understand your world first. It's changed much since I was last conscious. Sam and Gwen chose that moment to enter the medical bay, drawn by the sound of the falling tray. They stopped abruptly when they saw Lyra sitting upright. What the hell? Sam muttered. Jack quickly explained what Lyra had told him. Sam and Gwen listened with increasing disbelief. Their reactions ranged from fascination to fear. This changes everything, Gwen said finally. She was the team's geophysicist, normally the most pragmatic of them all, but now her eyes shone with excitement. Do you know what this means? First contact. It's already happened. Not officially, Lyra corrected. My mission was observation only. I wasn't supposed to interact with humans. At the time of my crash, your civilization wasn't ready for contact. Ready? Sam asked. What does that mean? Lyra seemed to choose her words carefully. The Astrani have protocols. We only reveal ourselves to species that have reached certain technological and social milestones. When I left on my mission, humans were still fighting wars with primitive weapons and dying from simple diseases. Jack thought about how much had changed in 2 centuries. Antibiotics, electricity, flight computers, the internet, nuclear weapons. He wondered which developments would impress an alien civilization and which would concern them. And now Gwen asked, Are we ready? Now Lyra tilted her head, studying them. I know I need to learn about your current world. Sam, who had been quietly observing, suddenly spoke up. We should report this, he said firmly. This isn't something we can keep secret. This is bigger than us. Jack felt a surge of protectiveness. No, he said. If we tell anyone, Lyra will be taken away. Studied, probably dissected. The government would never let something like this remain public. You don't know that, Sam argued. I know human nature. Jack replied. We need time to understand the situation. They argued. For hours, Sam insisting on scientific duty, Gwen vacillating between excitement and caution, Heather mostly silent but clearly terrified. Lyra watched them all, her expression unreadable. Eventually, they reached a compromise. They would keep Lyra's existence secret for 1 week, giving her time to recover fully and learn about Earth. Jack would be primarily responsible for helping her understand modern human society. If after a week she still seemed benevolent, they would discuss how to approach authorities. That night, Jack brought Lyra clothes books and a tablet computer with internet access. She adapted to the technology with remarkable speed. Your information network is primitive but functional, she commented, scrolling through websites. Your species has advanced considerably since my last observations. Jack watched her absorb information at an astounding rate. Your people must be incredibly advanced, he said. Lyra looked up from the tablet. The Astrani have been traveling between stars for thousands of your years, she explained. We have colonies on hundreds of worlds. Our technology would seem like magic to most humans. Can you tell me about your world? Jack asked. Lyra set down the tablet. My homeworld is called Astrania. It orbits a star you haven't named yet in a system about 70 light-years from here. It is larger than Earth with stronger gravity, which is why I feel so light here. She demonstrated by effortlessly jumping several feet in the air. Our atmosphere is thicker with more nitrogen. Our oceans are deeper. She described a world of towering crystal cities, advanced biotechnology, and a society structured around knowledge and exploration. We are explorers by nature. Lyra explained. Our greatest accomplishment is the vast archive, a repository of knowledge gathered from thousands of worlds and civilizations spanning millions of years. And you came here to study us, Jack said. Yes, Earth has been of particular interest, Lyra replied. Your species evolved remarkably quickly from simple tool use to complex technology. We have been observing your development for many centuries. Jack considered this. Were there others like you? Here on Earth, Lyra nodded. There have been many observation missions, some remain active. She saw his expression and added, but we do not interfere. We only watch and learn. Jack thought about all the UFO sightings throughout history, the conspiracy theories. Had some of them been real? Were aliens already among them? Why haven't you made contact? Before he asked Lyra's expression became serious. Earth is quarantined for a reason. Your species is unique among those we've studied. You advance technologically very quickly, but your social development lags behind. You create weapons before you create lasting peace. You pollute your environment even knowing the consequences. You are capable of both tremendous compassion and horrific cruelty. This makes you unpredictable, dangerous. Jack felt defensive. These are human problems, we're working on them. Lyra nodded. I can see that. And there has been progress. That is why some among my people believe it may soon be time for official first contact. The implications of her words were enormous. Jack felt dizzy thinking about it. Over the next few days, Lyra continued to learn about modern Earth, absorbing information at an astonishing rate. Jack taught her about recent history, technology, politics, and culture. She was particularly interested in arts and music. You create beauty, even amid suffering, she said after listening to classical music for the first time. This is rare among intelligent species. Meanwhile, the research team continued their debate about what to do. Sam remained convinced they should contact authorities. Gwen wanted to help Lyra re-establish contact. With her people, Heather still seemed frightened, keeping her distance whenever possible. On the 5th day, Jack took Lyra outside the research station. She stood in the snow looking up at the stars, her white hair blowing in the wind. The markings on her skin glowed faintly in the darkness. I can see my home from here, she said, pointing to a faint star. Jack couldn't identify. Do you want to go back? He asked, surprised by how much the question pained him. Lyra turned to him. I have a duty to report what I've learned, she said. My people need to know about Earth's progress. The question is how. They walked back to the station in companionable silence. Jack found himself increasingly drawn to this strange, beautiful being from another world. Her perspective on humanity was both humbling and inspiring. She saw their flaws clearly but also recognized their potential. That night, Jack was awakened by an alarm. The temperature in the research station had dropped dramatically. He found Lyra in the main lab, surrounded by pieces of equipment she'd taken apart. What are you doing? He asked, shivering in the cold. I need to build a communication device. Lyra explained. The components from your technology are primitive, but usable. If I can boost the signal enough, I might be able to contact a nearby observation post. You should have asked, Jack said, feeling betrayed. These aren't your things to take apart. Lyra looked genuinely confused. I needed them, she said, as if that explained everything. Jack realized the cultural gap between them might be wider than he thought. You can't just take what you want, he explained. This equipment belongs to the research station. To my team, Lyra seemed to consider this. Your concept of ownership is different from ours, she said finally. Among the Astrani, knowledge and resources are shared freely according to need. Jack sighed. You still should have asked. I apologize. Lyra said, I will remember this cultural difference together. They continued working on her communication device. Jack, helping her find alternatives for the equipment she'd disassembled. By morning, they had created something that looked like a cross between a satellite dish and a laser pointer. This should work, Lyra said, though. The range will be limited. It can only reach as far as your moon. But there may be an observation post there. Jack stared at her. You have people on our moon, not people. She corrected, automated systems. Only a few observation missions involve direct physical presence like mine was most are, conducted through remote technology. Jack thought about the implications of alien technology hidden on the moon, watching Earth. Lyra must have seen his expression. We mean no harm, she assured him. We only observe. The next day, Sam discovered what they had been building. What is this? He demanded, looking at the strange device. A communication array, Lyra explained calmly. I need to contact my people. Sam's face hardened. That's exactly what I was afraid of, he said. You're signaling your invasion fleet, Lyra. Looked genuinely surprised. Invasion. The Astrani do not invade worlds. We have no interest in conquest. Sam didn't look convinced. I can't let you use this, he said, reaching for the device. Jack stoked the fire in the small cabin's wood stove, trying to keep the temperature comfortable for both of them. Lyra seemed less affected by cold than humans, but she still preferred warmth. Outside the windows, darkness had fallen. The stars shone. With unusual clarity in the Alaskan sky, Lyra adjusted her communication device, making final calibrations. The strange contraption hummed softly, emitting occasional pulses of blue light that matched the markings on her skin. Almost ready, she said, not looking up from her work. The lunar observation post should be visible soon. Jack peered out the window at the crescent moon hanging low on the horizon. Somewhere up there, according to Lyra, was an alien observation post that had been watching Earth for centuries. The idea still seemed incredible despite the evidence sitting across from him. What will happen if you make contact? He asked. Lyra paused her work. I will report my findings, she said. The Astrani Council will evaluate Earth's current status and determine if your species is ready for official first contact, and if we're not ready, then observation continues. She looked up at him. The quarantine remains. Jack felt a strange disappointment. He had grown attached to Lyra in the short time he'd known her. The thought that her people might simply collect her and continue watching humanity from afar seemed wrong somehow. Do you want to go back? He asked. Lyra considered the question. My mission was to observe and report. She said that duty remains, however. She paused, her cat-like eyes studying him. My experience here has been unexpected. I find your species more complex, more interesting than our previous data suggested. Is that good? Lyra smiled, a gesture she'd been practicing. It looked almost natural now. It means my report will be more nuanced, she said. My personal experience with humans will provide context that remote observation cannot. Jack watched as she made final adjustments to the device. Outside, the wind picked up snow, swirling around the cabin. There, she said, pointing to the moon. The observation post is in position. She activated the communication device. A narrow beam of blue light shot upward, aimed precisely at a point on the moon's surface. The beam pulsed in, a complex pattern that Jack couldn't begin to decode. Now we wait, Lyra said. If the post is still active, we'll receive a response within 23 minutes. They sat in silence, watching the night sky. Jack felt the weight of the moment. This could be the beginning of something monumentous, first official contact between humanity and an advanced alien civilization. Or it could be nothing, just two fugitives in a cabin waiting for a response that would never come. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. Jack was beginning to lose hope when suddenly Lyra's device emitted a series of rapid beeps. A responding beam of light, blue and much fainter, appeared briefly from the direction of the moon contact established. Lyra said, her voice containing a hint of excitement. She began adjusting controls on the device. The beam from their transmitter changed its pattern. What are you telling them? Jack asked. That I survived. My mission was compromised, but I've gathered valuable data. I'm requesting extraction. Jack felt a pang at the word extraction. You're leaving. Lyra looked at him. I must report in person. The data I carry is too complex, too nuanced for this simple communication. The transmitter beeped again, receiving another message. They're sending a retrieval ship, Lyra said. It will arrive in approximately 40 hours. Jack tried to process this. In less than 2 days, Lyra would be gone, taken back to her people. He should be excited. This confirmed everything she had told him. Alien life was real. Advanced civilizations existed among the stars. And yet all he felt was a growing sense of loss. What about the government team? Jack asked. The one Sam called. They'll be at the research station by now. Looking for us. Lyra considered this. They will likely track us here eventually, she said. The retrieval ship will need to arrive before then. Jack nodded. We need to be careful. He said, no fires during the day. Minimize our tracks. We need to buy time. They spent the next day in tense preparation. Lyra continued, communicating with her people, receiving updates and sending reports. Jack secured the cabin, covering the windows, making their presence as inconspicuous as possible. They spoke in whispers, even though there was no one around for miles. Lyra told Jack more about her world. The Astrani civilization was ancient, having achieved space travel thousands of years before humans had invented the wheel. They had explored hundreds of star systems, established peaceful contact with dozens of other intelligent species, but Earth was special. Your world has more biodiversity than almost any planet we've discovered, Lyra explained. You have millions of unique species, all interconnected, all evolved naturally. This is rare, precious, and we're destroying it, Jack said with shame, thinking of climate change, pollution, mass extinction. Lyra nodded. Some among the Astrani Council believe this is reason enough to initiate contact to help preserve what remains. Others believe humanity must solve these problems alone. That intervention would only make things worse. What do you believe? Jack asked. Lyra was quiet for a moment. I believe humanity has potential, she said finally. You are young as a species. Impulsive, destructive at times, but also creative, compassionate, capable of change. I have seen this in you. Jack felt his face warm at her words. That night they sat by the window, watching the stars. Jack found himself memorizing Lyra's features, the subtle blue tint of her skin, the strange markings that occasionally pulsed with light, her eyes with their vertical pupils and shifting colors. He would likely never see another being like her again. Will you remember Earth? She asked suddenly, as if reading his thoughts. Jack smiled. How could I forget? No, she said. I mean, will you remember Earth? When you think of my visit centuries from now, Jack looked at her confused. You make it sound like you'll still be alive. Centuries from now, Lyra tilted her head. My species lives much longer than yours, she explained. What you would consider a normal human lifespan is merely adolescence for us. I am considered quite young among my people. How young? Jack asked. By your measurements, I am 170 of your Earth years. Jack stared at her. She looked no older than 30. I'll be long dead before you're even middle-aged, he realized. Lyra nodded, a sadness in her expression. This is why contact between our species is complicated, she said. We experience time differently. Our perspectives, our priorities. They differ, Jack. Thought about this. What is considered a full life among your people? The oldest of the Astrani have lived for nearly 2,000 Earth years, Lyra said. But it is not length of life that matters, it is depth of experience. This is something humans understand well. You live with such intensity, such urgency. Perhaps because your lives are brief. They talked through the night, sharing stories and perspectives. Jack told her about growing up in a small town, about his dreams of scientific discovery, about his fears for Earth's future. Lyra described distant worlds, incredible technologies, cultures, and civilizations humans had never imagined. As dawn approached, Jack realized he had never felt so connected to another being. Despite their vast differences, the second day passed slowly. They rationed their food, conserved heat, and continued to monitor for any sign of pursuit. Jack checked outside periodically, looking for helicopters or approaching vehicles. So far, they remained undiscovered. By the second night, Lyra's communication device indicated the retrieval ship was approaching Earth's atmosphere. They will land approximately 5 kilometers from here, she said. It must be brief. Your military would detect a larger ship or a longer presence. Jack nodded, understanding the implications. We should prepare to leave soon, as they gathered their few belongings. Jack heard the distant sound of helicopter rotors. His heart sank. They found us, he said. Lyra moved to the window, her enhanced vision peering into the darkness. 2 aircraft, she confirmed. Approaching from the south, 8 kilometers away and closing. We need to go now, Jack said, grabbing their packs. They can't find you. They slipped out into the cold night. The helicopter sounds grew louder. Jack led Lyra into the dense forest surrounding the cabin. Moving as quickly as they could through the deep snow, they headed north toward the coordinates Lyra had been given for the retrieval ship's landing. The helicopters reached the cabin behind, them searchlights cutting through the darkness. Jack and Lyra ducked behind a large snowdrift, watching as armed figures in white cold-weather gear rappelled down to the cabin. "Those aren't scientists," Jack whispered. "They're military." Lyra nodded. "They consider me a threat," she said. "It is as I feared. Your species still reacts to the unknown with fear and aggression." They continued moving through the forest, staying low, keeping to the shadows. The night was clear and cold, the aurora borealis painting, the sky with green and purple waves of light. Under different circumstances, it would have been beautiful. After an hour of difficult travel, they reached a small clearing. Lyra checked her device. "This is the place," she said. "The ship will arrive soon." Jack looked back the way they had come. Could the military track them here? Would they be captured before the ship arrived? The thought of Lyra being taken, dissected, studied filled him with dread. Something caught his attention. A faint, high-pitched sound. Just at the edge of hearing, Lyra heard it too, looking up expectantly. "They're here," she said. At first, Jack saw nothing. Then the air seemed to ripple like heat waves rising from summer pavement. A small craft appeared seemingly out of nowhere. It was unlike any vehicle Jack had ever seen, sleek, organic in shape with no visible propulsion system. It hovered silently about 2 meters above the snow. 5 years passed since that night in the Alaskan wilderness. Jack sat at his desk in a small apartment in Seattle, rain tapping against the windows. He turned the small blue device over in his fingers, a habit he had developed over the years. The device no longer glowed, having gone dormant shortly after Lyra left. But Jack kept it with him, always a reminder that he hadn't imagined it all. The military had found him that night standing alone in the clearing. They had taken him into custody, questioning him for weeks about the alien woman, about the technology she had brought, about the ship that had retrieved her. Jack told them everything. He had nothing to hide. Of course, they hadn't believed him. Not at first. But the evidence was compelling. The remains of the communication device, the unusual metal alloys in Lyra's equipment, the video footage from the research station showing her strange eyes and glowing skin markings. Eventually, they had to accept that something extraordinary had happened. Jack had been released after signing countless non-disclosure agreements. The official story was that the research team had discovered an unusual meteorite in the ice. Nothing more. The public never knew how close Earth had come to first contact. Jack returned to his academic work, but his heart wasn't in it anymore. How could he focus on ordinary geology after what he'd experienced? He spent his free time studying astronomy, searching the stars for any sign of the astronomy. His colleagues thought he had developed an eccentric new interest. Few knew the truth. Heather still worked with him, one of the few people who understood what he had experienced. They rarely spoke of it directly. The memory still too strange, too raw. But sometimes, when they worked late, they would look up at the night sky together, sharing a moment of silent understanding. Jack was reviewing student papers when his phone rang. An unknown number. "Hello," Jack said. "Dr. Miller," a formal voice responded. "This is Agent Ward with the Special Projects Division. We need you to come in." Jack felt his pulse quicken. The Special Projects Division was the government agency created to handle anything related to possible extraterrestrial contact. It had been years since they had contacted him. "May I ask what this is about?" he said carefully. "Not over the phone, sir. Please be at the following address in 2 hours. A car will be waiting." Jack wrote down the address, his mind racing. What could they want after all this time? Had they found something new? Evidence of other aliens? Perhaps they had finally decoded the device Lyra had given him. Jack had surrendered it to their scientist years ago, receiving only a non-functional replica in return. 2 hours later, Jack sat in a sterile conference room deep within a government building. The walls were bare, the furniture utilitarian. A team of serious-looking men and women in dark suits entered, led by a tall woman with short gray hair. "Dr. Miller," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Director Collins. Thank you for coming on such short notice." Jack shook her hand. What is this about? Director Collins gestured for everyone to sit. She opened a folder in front of her. 3 days ago, our deep space monitoring station in Hawaii detected an unusual signal, she began. It appears to be artificial in origin and is approaching Earth at speeds that defy our current understanding of physics. Jack leaned forward, his heart pounding. They're coming back, he whispered. We don't know that, Director Collins said. But given your previous experience, you're one of the few civilians with any insight into potential extraterrestrial contact. The President has authorized me to brief you on the situation and request your assistance. Jack nodded, trying to remain calm. What do you need from me? Your expertise, Director Collins replied. You spent time with one of them. You learned about their culture, their technology, their intentions. We need you to help us prepare for whatever is coming. For the next several hours, Jack reviewed the data. They showed him recordings of the signal star charts tracking its approach velocity measurements that made no sense by human physics. It was definitely a ship, and it was definitely of Astrani design. They're coming back, Jack said with certainty. I recognize the signature. It's similar to their communication protocols. But are they coming in peace? Director Collins asked. That's what we need to know. Jack thought of Lyra, of her words that night. 5 years. Go, I will advocate for contact. Your world deserves a chance, I believe they are, he said, but they will be cautious. They consider humanity unpredictable, dangerous. They will be watching how we respond. The government's reaction was swift and comprehensive. Contingency plans were activated. Military forces placed on high alert, scientists from every discipline brought in to consult. Jack found himself at the center of it all. The man who had spent time with an alien. The man who might understand their intentions. The ship would arrive in 3 days according to their calculations. It would enter Earth orbit near the North Pole, far from major population centers. Jack suspected this was deliberate, a way to minimize human contact if things went wrong. President addressed the nation that night. In a carefully worded speech, he confirmed that an unidentified object was approaching Earth, that all precautions were being taken, but that there was no cause for alarm. The public response was predictable. Some panicked. Some disbelieved. Many prayed. A few celebrated. The internet exploded with theories, conspiracies, hopes, and fears. Jack watched it all with a strange detachment. These were the reactions Lyra had warned about. The reason her people had remained hidden. The reason Earth's quarantine had lasted so long. On the second day, Jack was flown to a military base in northern Alaska, not far from where he had first found Lyra. A massive temporary facility had been constructed. Teams of scientists, military personnel, government officials worked around the clock preparing for first contact. Jack was given a small room where he reviewed his notes from 5 years ago, trying to remember everything Lyra had told him about her people, their protocols, their expectations. That night he stood outside looking up at the stars. The aurora borealis danced overhead just as it had the night Lyra left. Are you up there? He whispered. Is it you? On the morning of the 3rd day, alarms sounded throughout the facility. The ship had entered Earth's atmosphere. It was moving slowly, deliberately, following a course that would bring it directly to their location. Director Collins found Jack in the observation room. Our defense systems are tracking it, she said, but it's moving unlike anything we've ever seen. No heat signature, no sonic boom. It just moves like it's sliding through space. That's how their ships work. Jack said, remembering the retrieval vessel that had taken Lyra. They manipulate space itself, rather than pushing against it. Everyone was called to battle stations, though Jack doubted any human weapon could harm an Astrani vessel. If they didn't wish it, military personnel took positions. Scientists readied monitoring equipment, government officials prepared. Statements for every possible outcome. Jack was brought to the landing zone, a large open area surrounded by military vehicles and personnel. He felt strangely calm amid the tension. Whatever happened next would change human history forever. The ship appeared suddenly, as if stepping through an invisible door, one moment empty sky the next. A massive vessel hanging silently above them. It was larger than the retrieval ship Jack had seen, beautiful in its alien design. Organic curves shimmering, material that seemed to absorb and reflect light simultaneously. Everyone fell silent, staring upward. A section of the ship opened. A platform descended, carrying several figures. Jack recognized their build immediately, though they were different from Lyra. Their skin markings more elaborate, their clothing more formal. 3 Astrani representatives stood before humanity. Jack stepped forward, automatically drawn to these beings that reminded him so much of Lyra. One of the aliens moved toward him. Stopping a few paces away, it spoke in perfect English. Jack Miller. The voice was melodic, familiar. I told you I would advocate for contact. Jack stared in shock. Lyra. She looked different. Her white hair was longer, more elaborate. Her clothing was formal, ceremonial. Her skin markings more prominent, but those eyes, those strange cat-like eyes shifting between purple and gold. He would know them anywhere. Lyra, he whispered. She inclined her head. I am Ambassador Lyra. Now, she said, I speak for the Astrani Council. Your world has been granted provisional contact status. Director Collins stepped forward. Ambassador, she said formally, I represent the United States government. Lyra turned to her. I recognize your authority, she said. But I requested Jack Miller. Specifically, he has earned the right to be part of this historic moment. Jack felt dozens of eyes on him. He had known Lyra would remember him, but to request him specifically, to return herself as ambassador, this was beyond anything he had imagined. Lyra turned back to Jack. The council reviewed my report. She explained, the data you helped me gather. 5 years is a very short time for such a significant decision, but your actions, your compassion, your willingness to help at great personal risk, these things spoke well of humanity. Behind her, the other 2, Astrani, remained silent, watchful, their expressions unreadable to human eyes. We have much to discuss, Lyra continued. Provisional contact is only the beginning. There will be exchanges of knowledge, cultural missions, carefully managed interactions between our peoples, but no mass contact. Not yet. Your world remains divided, fragile. Your technology outpaces your wisdom. Jack nodded, understanding. This was more than he had hoped for. A beginning. A chance. I have something for you, Lyra said. She held out her hand. In her palm was the small blue device she had given him 5 years ago. Now it glowed brightly once more. 10 years had passed since the Astrani made official first contact with Earth. Jack stood on the balcony of his apartment in the International Exchange Center, a gleaming building that housed both human and alien diplomats, scientists, and cultural ambassadors. The skyline of Oslo stretched before him, the city lights twinkling in the early evening. Snow fell gently, coating everything in white. So much had changed in a decade. The initial fear and suspicion had gradually given way to cautious cooperation, then to genuine partnership. The Astrani had been careful not to overwhelm humanity with advanced technology, instead focusing on helping humans solve their own problems. Climate engineering had reversed the worst effects of global warming. Medical knowledge had eliminated several deadly diseases. Energy production had been revolutionized, making fossil fuels obsolete. Not everyone welcomed these changes. Of course, religious extremists considered the aliens an affront to their beliefs. Corporations that lost power in the new economy funded resistance movements. Nations competed for Astrani favor, causing new political tensions. But overall, humanity had risen to the occasion, adapting to the new reality with surprising resilience. Jack had been at the center of it all. As one of the few humans who had known an Astrani before first contact, he had become an important liaison between the species. He now headed the Cultural Exchange Division, working directly with Lyra to bridge the gap between their worlds. A door slid open behind him. Jack turned to see Lyra entering the apartment. Her appearance had changed little in 15 years since he first found her in the ice. Her white hair was longer now, styled in the complex braids. That indicated her diplomatic status. Her skin markings glowed softly in the dimming light. The council has responded to our proposal, she said without preamble. Jack felt his pulse quicken. This was the moment they had been working toward for years. A proposal to expand the exchange program, allowing more humans to visit Astrani worlds, and more Astrani to experience Earth firsthand. And Jack asked, unable to keep the tension from his voice. Lyra made that gesture that had become so familiar, her version of a human smile. They approved, she said with rare emotion. In principle, the details will require negotiation, but the path is open. Jack exhaled relief and excitement washing through him. This was a milestone, a sign that the Astrani were committing to long-term relations with humanity. Another step toward full integration into the galactic community. They believed our assessment. Jack asked the Astrani Council was notoriously cautious, still concerned about humanity's violent tendencies and emotional unpredictability. They trust you, Lyra said simply. They trust us, Jack. Nodded, understanding what went unsaid. Their partnership had become legendary among both species, the human and the Astrani, who bridged two worlds. Their work together had helped convince the Council that humanity, despite its flaws, was worthy of greater trust. When do we begin? Jack asked. Lyra moved to stand beside him at the balcony. The first human delegation will depart for Australia in 3 months. She said, they will stay for 1 Earth year. A symbolic gesture representing humanity's new place among the stars. Jack watched the snow falling, thinking of that Alaskan glacier where it all began, where he had found Lyra frozen in the ice. He had never imagined then where that discovery would lead. I wish I could go, he said softly. Lyra turned to him, surprised. You can? She said. You would be the natural choice to lead the delegation. Jack shook his head. The doctors were clear. My heart can't handle the stress of space travel. The increased gravity on your world would kill me. Lyra was silent for a moment. Jack had suffered a heart attack the previous year. The result of stress, overwork, and perhaps the lingering effects of his time in military custody 15 years ago. He had recovered but remained fragile. Human medicine, even with Astrani assistance, had its limits. There are alternatives, Lyra said carefully. Jack looked at her questioningly. The Astrani have technologies, she began. We do not typically share them with other species, but exceptions can be made. Medical technologies. Biological adaptations. Jack understood what she was suggesting. A more direct intervention. Something beyond the medical knowledge the Astrani had already shared. Something that would change him. Would the Council allow it? He asked. Lyra looked out at the falling snow. For you they might, she said. You are respected among my people. Your work has been crucial to our successful integration. I could make the case. Jack considered this. The idea was both frightening and exhilarating. To be changed physically to become something not quite human anymore, but to see the stars, to visit Lyra's homeworld, to continue their work for decades to come. I need time to think about it, he said. Lyra nodded. Time is something we have, she replied, echoing words she had spoken years before. Their conversation was interrupted by a soft chime from Lyra's communication device. She checked it, her expression changing. What is it? Jack asked, recognizing her. Concern a situation at the North American Exchange Center, she said. An extremist group has breached security. They are threatening the Astrani delegation. Jack moved quickly to his computer, bringing up the emergency channels. The screen showed chaos. At the Chicago facility where several Astrani scientists were conducting a seminar, armed humans had stormed the building, taking hostages. We need to respond, Jack said. Already sending alerts to the crisis team, Lyra was receiving updates through her own channels. 3 of my people are confirmed captive, she said, her voice tight. The humans are demanding the Astrani leave Earth permanently. They claim we are corrupting humanity. Jack felt a familiar weight settle in his chest. This wasn't the first. Such incident. Resistance to the Astrani presence had grown more organized, more violent in recent years. Despite the obvious benefits of cooperation, the crisis team is mobilizing, Jack said. His phone rang. Director Collins, still heading security operations. After all these years, Miller, she said without greeting. Situation in Chicago. We need you and Ambassador Lyra on a transport in 30 minutes. The President wants your input on the response. We're on our way, Jack replied. As they gathered their things, preparing for the crisis, Jack felt the familiar pull of two worlds. The hope of greater cooperation between species contrasted with the reality of human fear and resistance. They had come so far in 10 years, but moments like this showed how fragile it all remained. On the transport, Jack and Lyra reviewed the situation. The extremist group called themselves Earth First. They opposed all alien influence, believing humanity should solve its own problems. They had become increasingly violent in recent months, attacking exchange centers, sabotaging joint projects, spreading misinformation. "This feels coordinated," Lyra observed, studying the reports. "More sophisticated than their previous attacks." Jack agreed. Something had changed. The group had always been disorganized before. This operation showed planning, resources, intelligence. They landed in Chicago 3 hours later. The situation had deteriorated. The extremists were threatening to kill one hostage every hour until their demands were met. They had already injured 2 Astrani, demonstrating their willingness to harm the aliens. Jack and Lyra were brought to the command center, where Director Collins was coordinating the response. "This is beyond their usual capabilities," Collins said. "They have military-grade weapons, communications, jamming technology. We think they have inside help." Jack reviewed the building schematics, looking for weaknesses, points of entry. "I know these people," he said. "I've dealt with their leaders before. Let me talk to them." Collins shook her head. "Too risky. They specifically mentioned you in their manifestos. They see you as a traitor to humanity." Jack felt Lyra's hand on his arm, a gesture she'd adopted from humans. "I should speak to them," she said. Everyone turned. To her surprise, these people hate the Astrani. Collins said they blame you for everything from economic disruption to cultural corruption. "Precisely," Lyra replied. "If I speak to them directly, show myself willing to hear their concerns, it may diffuse the situation." Jack understood her logic but feared for her safety. These extremists were unpredictable, dangerous. They might see her appearance as an opportunity to make a statement by harming the most prominent Astrani on Earth. "It's too dangerous," he said. Lyra fixed him with those strange cat-like eyes. "Jack Miller," she said quietly. "When you found me in the ice, you took a chance. You trusted me when you had every reason not to. Now I must do the same. I must show these humans that we are not afraid, that we believe in dialogue even with those who hate us." The room fell silent. Her words reminding everyone of how far they had come, of the trust that had been built between their species. One relationship at a time. Collins finally nodded. "Well, establish a video link," she said. "But at the first sign of danger, we go in." The connection was made. The leader of the extremists appeared on screen. A middle-aged man with hard eyes and a military bearing. Jack recognized him as former General Allen Foster, cashiered from service 5 years ago for refusing to work with Astrani. "Peacekeeping Forces, Ambassador," the man said, his voice cold. "You honor us with your presence." Lyra stood tall, her diplomatic training evident. "I wish to understand your concerns," she said. "Your actions endanger both our peoples, but I believe you act from conviction, not malice." Foster seemed surprised by her approach, clearly expecting condemnation or threats. "Tell me, Ambassador," he said, "why should humanity accept alien oversight? We've survived thousands of years on our own.